Hi there, and welcome back once again to module number 2. This is lesson number 3. What we're going to talk about today is appraisals. Now, this is something a lot of people don't really understand or know about because it's simply not taught or talked about. Appraisals is, what can I say? It's a guesstimation, it's an evaluation, it's an approximation of what a property is worth based upon past sales. So for example, as a real estate agent, we are asked to do CMAs all the time. And now a CMA is what they call a comparative market analysis. Very similar, if not actually the same, as an appraisal. The difference being is that with a CMA, we can only do CMAs to help you determine what the value of your property is for resale. Whereas with a full-blown appraisal done by an appraisor, that appraisal can be used then for financing purposes and or sales as well. So what a CMA is, I come into your house, I take a look at your house, I do measurements, I assess the quality, the condition, the room sizes, the features, benefits of your home. I then go back and I do my homework and I find other similar properties that I've sold within the past, well, as close to 3 months away to a year away. And I take a look at all of those comparables and I'll make adjustments. So if your house has a single car garage, but this other house sold for more because it had a 2-car garage, then I have to make an adjustment. If one has a finished basement compared to the other one, if there's more bathrooms in one versus the other one. So there's pluses and minuses that go on all the time in order to help me come up with an evaluation of what your property is worth on the market. Now, in the end, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have 6 to 10 properties to use as comparables, and there could be more than that, but I'm going to pick the top 6 properties to take a look at to determine what the value of your property is. And it's going to generate a range. So for example, we could have a range of $300,000 all the way up to $360,000 for houses similar to yours. And then what I have to do is, as I suggested, is make pluses and minuses, adjustments to come up with an evaluation based upon the features and benefits of yours compared to the others. And let's say I come up with a value and say, your house should be worth $330,000 if we were to put it on the market today. Now the reality is that's just an educated guess based on my part, an educated guess based upon all of the past sales and my experience in the real estate market working with other sellers and buyers as well. So there's some great validity to the number that I've come up with. But in reality, the only true value of a property is what a willing seller is willing to sell their property to a willing buyer for. And what that means is that if the willing seller is under no undue stress, they're not going through a divorce, they're not going through a downsizing, loss of job, or they have to sell the property. They just want to sell their property. And the buyer is not a motivated buyer. So you've got a unmotivated seller and an unmotivated buyer coming together. They agree on a price. That's what the fair market value is, truly what it is. The challenge is we don't know that until we find a willing buyer and a willing seller. So this is how we come up with the values on properties. Now when you go out and buy a property, let's say we'll use this as an example. The property is listed at $330,000. You go out and buy that property. It's your own primary residence or an investment property. It doesn't really matter. And you come in at a purchase price of $310,000. You're pretty darn happy because you think you just got a really good deal. You've negotiated a really good deal from $330,000 down to $310,000. You don't know what this range is because you're not privy to the appraisals that are out there. So you feel it's worth that. You bought it for $310,000. Now you go to the bank to get financing. The bank is going to send an appraiser out to appraise that property to determine what the value is. Whoa, hang on. No, they're not going to determine what the value is. You know what they're going to do? They're going to determine that the value of the property is worth at least what you paid for it. You hear that? At least what you paid for it. The appraisal is not going to give you this range of what it's actually worth. The appraisal is going to come back to the bank and say, yes, the property really is worth $310,000. We put a valuation of $315,000 on it. So you're not even privy to get access to this appraisal. It's the banks. Very rarely will they show you the appraisal. If they do, and you see that the appraisal came in at $315,000, you bought it for $310,000, it was listed at $330,000, all of a sudden you're thinking, hang on, that's not a good deal at all. I thought I got a really smoking deal. But again, you got to understand that the appraisal was done for the bank, and from the bank's perspective, they want to know that the property's worth the $310 that you paid. That's all. They don't care what the property's worth potentially. If the appraiser comes back and says the property's worth $290,000, now you've got a problem, because the property truly is worth a lot less than what it was being marketed for and what you paid for it. So that's how the appraisal works from the bank's perspective. And a lot of people believe that that's the only way that, they think an appraisal is an appraisal is an appraisal. Not the case at all. So let me show you how I use an appraisal to my advantage. Actually, I'll just share with you a very quick story. I recently did the refinancing, a financing of a property we bought. We bought this little duplex for cash, and we didn't have a mortgage on it. And we've held it in a cash possession for about 2 years. We finally decided we needed access to the equity of that property, so what we did was we didn't go to the conventional bank to get financing. What I did was I went to an RSP lender, somebody I knew who wanted to place a mortgage. And they were willing to lend me money at 4% interest with their RSPs, guaranteed for the next 5 years. So they're very happy because they're getting a good return. They don't have any management fees or any headaches like that, that they normally have when they put it in the mutual funds. So it's a true 4% return they're getting. For myself, I'm happy with it because I don't have to jump through all the hoops for qualifying, etc. But what I do have to do is I have to provide an appraisal in order to verify that the property is worth what I say it's worth. So what I did was I contacted an appraiser to come out and do the appraisal. I actually gave the appraiser, a nice young lady, never dealt with her before, never met with her. I said, here is the situation, here's the property. I want to get an appraisal for potentially selling the property, not refinancing. I didn't tell her that. I want to potentially sell it. And here are the comparables I've seen that are out there. I believe it should be worth X number of dollars. So now I've already given her my expectations of what the appraisal should be. I can't tell her what to do, not suggesting that, but I've given her these other comparables to use as well. So she can't ignore those other comparables, and they are good comparables. So she came back with just a value just slightly under what I suggested, because she certainly wouldn't want to come across as thinking that I was able to tell her what to do. So she came in with a value pretty close to what I wanted. I was happy with it. It was more than enough to satisfy the lender that was lending me the money, and I'm off to the races. All right. Now, another way that I use this is that when I was doing the lease options, and I used to do a lot of purchase lease options. So a tenant would contact me, we would go through the whole process, qualifying them, etc. Once they were qualified, I'd let them go out and start looking for properties using a realtor of my choice. And once they found a property that I was happy with, I would go in and make an offer, do negotiating, and get it for the best price possible. So in this scenario here, if the property was listed for $330,000, I would go in and I would try and get that property down to as close to $300,000 as possible. So let's say that I bought it for $300,000. It was a motivated seller. I've got my fantastic negotiating skills, whatever the case. I got it down to $300,000, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I'm going to experience the same challenges everybody else does when it comes to financing. I go to the bank and I say, okay, I've got this house. This is what I've paid for it. The bank's going to send the appraiser out, and they're going to come back with an appraisal probably around $310,000 at the most. Now, if I was uneducated, I'd be thinking that I didn't get such a great deal after all, because it was listed at $330,000, but I know it was worth $330,000. So I'm okay with that $310,000 appraisal. It has validated the fact that I paid $300,000 for it. Now I have to put my 20% down, which is $60,000. So I've got a $240,000 mortgage and $60,000 cash tied up in this property. I want to get my $60,000 out of this property as quickly as possible. And the way I would do that is I would approach another investor and say, would you be interested in placing an RSP mortgage, second mortgage, against this property? Now, I don't tell them that I paid $300,000. They don't ask what I paid for it either. They say, well, what is it worth? What's it worth? That's what's important. So I go back and I hire an appraiser. And I say, here's the property that I own. I don't even tell them what I paid for it. They can find out if they wanted to anyways. Here's what I bought the property for, and what I want to know is how much it's potentially worth if I was to sell it again as quickly as possible. So they're going to go out, they're going to get their, do the same amount of work and find 6 comparables, and they might come back and say, well, it's in this range. And I'm going to say, well, if I was to put it on the market, could I put it on the market for $350,000? And according to this range, that's within the range, that's of acceptance, she'll give me an appraisal for $350,000. Perfect, I'm happy. Okay, now I take this appraisal, I go to my investor and say, I would like to place $60,000 second mortgage on this property, and that will bring it up to a $300,000 financing combined, okay, between the first and second. $240,000 for the first, $60,000 for the second. It's now financed at $300,000, which, by the way, is 100% financed of the purchase price, but not 100% financed of the market price. And that's the difference. So then I show them that here is the actual market value based upon this appraisal. I hand them the appraisal. They look at it. They see all the comparables. They see that valuation. Okay. If I put $60,000 second mortgage on there, there's still $50,000 equity in that property. They're very comfortable. That's more than 90. That's less than 90% loan to value. That's around a 85%, 82% loan to value, meaning there's still 17 or 18% equity in the property. So that if something happened to me, I defaulted on the mortgage, and either the first or the second lender had to take over that mortgage, there'd be enough equity in that property to make it worthwhile for the second mortgage holder to take it back and hold the property and or discount it and sell it quickly. So that's the difference between the two different appraisals. Now, if I bought that property and I don't like the taxes are too high. I'm going to hold this property for a long time. I'm not going to sell it. I want to make sure my taxes are as low as possible. I may want to dispute my taxes. In order to do that, what I'm going to need to do is get another appraisal done. And I'm going to direct the appraiser to give me a valuation as low as possible in order to contest my taxes. So they're going to come in with a valuation down here at this end of the range. So that's the game of the appraisals. You need to understand that it is a range for sure, and what the purpose of the appraisal is being used for will dictate whether it's at the low end or the high end. And you can, to a certain extent, you can control that through education. And you can't tell the appraiser what it is, the value, but you can tell them what the purpose of it is. If I told that appraiser that for my little duplex that the appraisal was for refinancing, then she would be more conservative and she would have brought it in at a lower value. But because it was for resale, there's perceived less risk for her, because if I don't sell it at the full value that she said it would sell for, it's not a big deal. But if she said it was worth, in this particular case, if they say it's worth $350 and I bought it for $310, the bank's fine with that. But then if I default on the mortgage and the bank finds out it's only worth $290,000, then the bank's going to be very upset with the appraiser, and they're going to go after the appraisal and sue the appraiser. So this is why the appraiser is very, very careful with what numbers they actually share or come up with. And you just need to understand that there is a way to control the outcome to your favor and still stay within the guidelines of being legal and fair and within market value. You never want to go outside the range. If the appraisal comes in and says the maximum is $360, you don't want to have the appraiser, you don't want to pay the appraiser some money on the side to come up with a false appraisal to say that it's worth $380,000 so that you can get your investor to give you more money. That's mortgage fraud. So you definitely want to stay within this range, stay safe. And the banks will not allow you to use your own appraisers when it comes time to buying the property to justify the price, because of the potential for you to influence the appraiser to come up with a higher value. And again, it just lends itself to mortgage fraud. So that's why the rules are the way they are. You just need to understand how to work with the rules the way they are to your advantage, and knowing how the appraisal is created will allow you to become more creative with your deals. So that's what it's all about. Hope that was of value to you, and look forward to seeing you on the next video, which will be lesson number 4. Take care now. Bye.